California, Silicon Valley, Hollywood, New Age. But also, California is sages in the hills. We're talking with Christopher Hills, who is living in the hills near Boulder Creek, and he's certainly a New Age person. He made his fame in health food. He brought to a thing called spirulina to the surface.
Well, that was rather late in life.
Yeah, later. Before that, he was involved in a thing called University of the Trees.
Right. Okay.
And we talked with him about America today, California, and what is happening in the world.
Yeah, well, I've had a long life. I'm 70 years old. I'm just beginning to get another 70 years. So, like, up to the time I came to America, I was an author in yoga. I did a lot of yoga in India.
And then you came here and you invented or you found this stuff called spirulina?
I came originally to found a yoga university. As a result of a conference in New Delhi, the yogis elected me to put a yoga university here. But in the end, I went anti-guru, so...
yeah, because the name of this university turned out to be a university
of the Trees, yeah.
Yeah, that's not a guru-like, it's nature-like.
Well, it's nature, but it's also referring to the tree of knowledge and the tree of life, which is a mystical concept.
And that became a community, in fact.
Yeah, it became a community. That's about 80 people, and they decided to form businesses and things like that. And
so the tree actually had the tree had fruits.
It had many fruits.
Yes.
Yes.
And one of the fruits was spirulina.
Spirulina was something I researched many years ago before I founded University of the Trees. It was researching algae to feed the world.
Yeah, so it's actually a substance, well, it's actually algae that come from specific waters, Baja California, Mexico.
In the beginning we looked at every kind of algae we could think would be a human food because we wanted to feed the world from it. One of the concepts was to take the sun's light and lock it up in vegetable matter, because harnessing the sun's light right now, all we can do it is with photocells or with batteries, store it.
Yeah.
So it's you can't store the sun's energy except through a battery. And I wanted to store it in something that could be burnt like a fuel. And after all the oil we use comes from algae, ultimately.
Yeah.
You see, so ultimately I thought, well, why go into the ground to get oil? Why not just make fuel from the algae?
So you wanted a more efficient way to get the sunlight harnessed into some kind of energy and food. But the way it turned out, spirulina became a health food, a very powerful and potent...
Well, I had a problem. How can you feed the hungry that doesn't have any money to pay for the food? So I thought, well, if I sold it as a food here, with the profit we could feed the hungry, give it away. Because you can't give food away unless you get some money from somewhere. And normally it's government handouts, all the wheat and corn and food that they give away to the hungry is to be paid for by governments, because it's free.
Or it's to be subsidized like in Egypt where they subsidize the bread for the poor.
Yeah, so I wanted a way of where you could actually harness the sun's light, lock it up in vegetable matter, and use that vegetable matter either as a fuel for the body, which is food, or burn it to heat, make a boiler, or press it into bricks and build a house with it. A universal way of locking up energy from the sun.
And algae were an efficient way to do that because they
algae was the most efficient way, yes. And so I looked first at chlorella. There's another kind of algae which is very popular now as a health food, and we were the first to research that many years ago with my colleague Dr. Nakamura in Japan. And then we decided that spirulina was a much better, more efficient food than chlorella. So that's why we switched to spirulina. And because we could grow spirulina in ponds and harvest it very simply without a lot of expensive machinery. You see, because Corella is so tiny and small, it's only 10 microns, it will go through all the filters. And you can't harvest it without special machines.
Mm-hmm.
So spirulina, you can take a cloth and just scoop it out of the lake and it'll filter it out and you can eat it. And, or put it in a hole in the ground and let it dry in the sun and then it becomes a cake. And you just scrape the sand off the bottom and you can sell it in the marketplace. Which is
or make pills of it or whatever, some kind of food.
Yeah.
Now, gradually, or maybe all the time, apart from the food for the body, you were interested in food for the mind.
For the hungry, yeah, because I thought that I'm only interested in solving insoluble problems. That's my hobby. And so feeding the world without any money is an insoluble problem.
Yeah.
See, so I thought, well, if I make it into a health food, the money we make from selling it to rich Americans can go to pay for food, for shipping it to the hungry.
And the way you did market it in those days was through a thing called network marketing, which was an innovation of the time.
Yeah, there were only about 3 companies in network marketing then.
Yeah. Network marketing means that people sell to their friends and build up some kind of distribution network. Their friends sell it to their friends. Mm-hmm. So you don't have the middleman, you don't have the need for a distribution and physical network. It kind of filters naturally into the population.
And everybody gets a bonus off what they sell. So they can make some money. And then they can do whatever they like. You know, if they work 3 days a week or 2 days a week or selling this algae, then everybody can make some money to live on and also feed the hungry at the same time.
Yeah.
So that was the concept.
But apart from the physical food, apart from what we eat, you were interested in the mind. What
Well, I also
ideas
found that spirulina affected the mind. That affected not only our physical body, but made us sharper in intelligence.
It did something what we would call these days smart drugs.
Yeah.
Smart drinks, stuff that you...
Yeah, spirulina was the first smart drug, if you call it that, but it's smart food.
Yeah.
And we sold the first year $20 million of it.
So,
and made a $6 million profit, which we then invested in factories in Africa and in Israel and
now spirulina is
all over the world.
It's all over the world, many brands, stuff like that. But apart from products, you have been writing books about how our consciousness, how our mind and body work together. And I remember your books where you worked with chakras and you worked with colors, and you had quite a I would say a big theory that kind of explained a lot of otherwise unexplainable things.
I wrote a lot of books about 27 books about this stuff, but you could go on writing books about consciousness forever, and that's what the monasteries do. You know, the libraries in the monasteries are full of books about consciousness. So I decided that books were not going to be the way that the world changes, because we've had some very good best-selling books that the world's still just in a mess.
But like the Bible is an example.
Yeah, the Bible is a best-selling book, but look at the state of the planet.
So you think books is not enough, but what is enough then?
Well, I believe we have to have a change or shift in consciousness, or a paradigm shift, what they call. A new paradigm is needed, a new way of thinking about ourselves and about the world and about what matter is, what spirit is, what consciousness is.
Now, people have been talking about a paradigm shift and about the new age and the time of Aquarius, but I still go out in the street and see many people begging. Here in America there's lots of begging and poor people. I do see that we have changed the way we do away with organic waste.
Yeah.
We have all these blue boxes in the streets, but the people haven't changed. They're still hungry for money.
They still think like Abraham thought. No different. Or Jesus or anybody else. We haven't had a paradigm change in thinking. Now there's been some breakthroughs in science, like we think completely different about matter now. From Einstein's theories, we think completely differently about light. But we don't think much different about consciousness. People just don't think it is anything solid, or you can't grab it, you can't get hold of it, you can't measure it.
But the scientists are now at the forefront of science saying, yeah, but there is consciousness in the formula because the observer is part of the observed.
That's true. We can say all of that, but it doesn't make any difference because the consciousness is the one that creates the measurements or the mathematics. Mathematics is a tool, yardsticks are tools, meters are tools. They don't exist in nature. And so I'm saying we have to go back to nature and see how nature measures. See, nature doesn't measure in minutes or in time.
No, but it does things to us. You have a beautiful place here. It's like a magical palace, a castle, with lots of woods around it and gulches and canyons. And
well, I'm a mile from the road here, in the middle of the forest.
Yeah, and you have actually done something with all those places. You have made them ritual places, and you've given them names, and you have placed objects.
Yeah, I call this whole property, which is 50 acres, the Garden of Forgiveness. Because I believe wherever forgiveness is, you have heaven.
And how do we have to forgive the people that they spoil the woods? Stuff like that?
Forgive everybody. Forgive the devil even for all thousands of years of torture and atrocities and so forth.
Is there a devil?
You forgive the devil to free yourself of being attached to bad thoughts.
Yeah, but then do you believe there is a devil?
Well, the devil is just made out of consciousness like everything else is.
So it's part of what we are.
It's what we think. It's how we think. We think we must have this solid, so we have something that's not solid. Or existence even we talk about. We talk about non-existence. There isn't anything that's non-existent. Because who can say what's not existing? Somebody has to say it.
You mean to say that even the non-physical, the stuff we cannot touch, still exists? If it exists in our mind, it does exist.
We talk of void, the void in Buddhism, the big void, but there's no void. That's our imagination thinks there's something like nothing, because we're something. We think of ourselves as a physical body, so we create space, which moves. Physical bodies move through space.
Yeah, but we have created good and bad, and like animals, they think about good and bad.
That's all dualistic thinking. It's not reality. There's no reality to that kind of thinking. And most humans think that way, by the way.
Yeah, but take a bird. He knows what is good food and bad food because it attacks his existence. If the water is poisoned, he wouldn't drink it. He would feel something about it. So he must have an idea about what is good and bad.
Yeah.
Humans have that. If there's a guy coming at us with a gun, we have a feeling that's not good because it threatens us.
If it makes us feel good, we think it's good. But it might not be.
But the horrible thing is we see it on television all the time, and it seems to make children feel good, so we do it more, and so violence is part of our life.
So we call that good. But something that's less good might be still good. So I don't believe in good and bad. I don't think there's anything good and bad.
You don't believe there is bad in people?
It's just what is.
Yeah, but so
what is almighty. What is what's happening. What is the real law of the universe. And you can't change what is unless you have understanding of it.
So how do you dissolve this separation between what you think and that what is?
Yeah, well, that's what yoga is all about. Union. Yoga means union, or unifying ourselves with the totality. Well, the totality, of course, is who you are, ultimately, if you take all the limits off your consciousness. So you have to think, who puts the limits on your consciousness? Who?
So
other
then
people?
You come into the...
Mostly it's other people, other authorities, or the Bible, or science. All the authorities that people look to, they live by them, and they think they're real. The only authority is the validator of your experience, the truth of what you live.
Yeah, but that might be hypothetically, being my father and mother sitting on my shoulders telling me what is good and bad.
Or maybe Abraham, or whoever.
So how do I get rid of these guys telling me what is good and bad?
Well, first of all, you have to realize who you are and what consciousness is. When you know what consciousness is, then you don't have any authorities outside of yourself. You are the validator of everything you know. And nobody else can tell you how you're supposed to feel. That's freedom.
Yeah, but churches have always said, hey, we don't leave this to you, we're going to tell you what good and bad is. We give you.
Churches are part of the history of mankind, which has never thought freely. It's never had total freedom. The human race is not in that state yet.
So you think, or you're saying, religion and freedom of thinking are opposed?
Well, usually that's what it means. Religion means to bind you to some kind of faith or some kind of philosophy or some kind of God, or whatever kind you pick. And there are many ideas about what God is, but who can say? Who's going to tell God what to do?
Who are we to guess the face of God?
Or even understand it. We only see in our universe a narrow band in the visible light spectrum. And either side of that, there's a hell of a lot more going on, but we don't see it.
That was one of the messages I picked up from your books, that we only see one octave of light. We hear a couple more octaves of sound, but there is, of course, a huge
vast, many octaves.
Of light, and some animals see a little bit more or see it different, and if we use equipment we can see maybe infrared and ultraviolet, but there is much more. If we could see all the radiation, we would at this moment we're actually surrounded by electromagnetic waves ranging from television and maybe the nuclear reactor down the road and all kinds of stuff. We are really embalmed in radiation.
You asked me a question earlier about how do you do that? How do you get into this understanding of the next level of consciousness? And I'd say it's very simple, but to explain it in words is not simple.
Because it's unexplainable.
But I can say the easiest way is to understand that you put the limits on everything you see or everything you hear and everything you read. You're the one that validates what you're reading and says this is true or this is false. And I'm saying till you understand that you're the one who is self-limiting and everything else in the universe is self-limiting.
Yeah, I have a way of saying that you are
self-limited beings, self-limiting beings. So I'm saying take the limits off your consciousness. Don't have any. And what happens?
Well, the way I say it is, I am the director of the film, of the movie that's played on the inside of my eyes, and I decide what I'm going to see, and I decide what is going to happen.
And you can change it.
And I can change it. But that is, people like Avatar, the movement says, well, recreate your reality. It comes from the S movement.
Yeah. But first of all, you have to realize that you're the one that puts the limits on everything. So you're the one that's going to take them off. No one can take the limits off for you.
Yeah, but there's a danger there. There have been many movements that said take the limits off, Avatar, Scientology, and many movements that said, okay, change your reality. But I haven't seen the people that did that become more happy or more...
That's right. Well, you see people who take the limits off themselves become happy because they become one with nature. They become one with everything. They don't separate. They don't think in terms of separateness. See, even the greatest science of all, which is the science of the mind, yoga, that's much deeper than people think, because it's not just doing physical jerks in the body, it's mental. How do we think? And the ancients discovered certain things about consciousness, but we ordinary people wouldn't even understand. It's written in Sanskrit and all that stuff, and it doesn't mean anything to people who've got limits. If you take the limits off your consciousness and read something like that, then it has meaning. So even the word yoga, which means union, is not real, because there is no union. Because if you think about it, in order to have union, you have to have two things to unite. You see, so there's separation in just the word yoga, or union.
Yeah.
So the yogi says, there's no such thing, because you're already united, so how can you separate what's already united?
Yeah, I feel that sometimes. That people that do yoga for the exercise, that in doing the yoga, they really separate themselves from life, and that the ultimate form of yoga is just being yourself and do what you...
Or they call themselves a guru or a yogi or whatever, and that's a title or a limitation.
Yeah.
And I'm saying don't call yourself anything, you know, just don't think you're anything but everything. And when you start to think as everything, then you remove all the limits.
Mm-hmm. Now the Vedantic sages have known that, and they say that above the level of karma and fruit of the karma, which is really action and reaction in the universe, there's a level of akarmic being where you don't cause things to happen. You just are, and therefore you don't cause misery or whatever. You just try to be above this all. And
usually they call that the void, you know, where you enter a state of consciousness where there's just you and just pure consciousness.
But you say it's not a void, it's the everything.
There is no void. See, that's, people think I'm stupid for saying that because they can't conceive that there is no such thing as nothing.
Well, there used to be a shop here in town, Boulder Creek, that was called the All and Everything shop.
Still here.
Yeah. Oh, no, it's closed. It was the All and Everything shop and the All and Everything bank.
Yeah.
And it had the Enneagram symbol, and it was a
well, that's what everybody wants. All and everything. They want everything. So the only way to get everything is to take the limits off yourself. So you can think like anybody else. Mm-hmm. You can think like a Christian, you can think like a Buddhist, you can think like a scientist, you can think like a yogi, you can think like a rabbit, or anything. See, once you take the limits off. So I go around the planet looking for people who have no limits, who have taken the limits off their consciousness, and that way they can enter into relationships which have no limits.
Yeah.
So they're not limiting anybody else. That's called giving total freedom to another person so they can be themselves, whoever they are.
Without restriction, without separation.
Even the devil.
Yeah. Now, practically, you've been in very good health for 70 years, and now lately you broke something in your back.
I injured my spine, and I'm now walking around, but I was flat on my back for a couple of months.
So this miracle of health in the now, which you were, and I've seen you climb up trees and do stuff amazing for your age, you encountered a limit, a physical limit.
Well,
how
it
do
gave
you
me an
feel about
understanding of pain, for instance. These excruciating pains of the spinal injury, I'd never had anything like that in my life.
Has that changed?
But I'd seen other people have it, but it's not the same thing. And then I used to see old people getting in the car very slowly and very painfully, you know, and I used to look down on them a bit and say, well, I'll never be like that. I'm going to look after my body, so I'll never be like that.
So you're changing
now,
that sort of...
I see them and I see myself. I'm saying, geez, I'm doing the same thing I criticized them for, not living a life so they weren't healthy. And now I'm doing the same thing.
Does that make you more loving towards them?
Oh, it makes me understanding of people who are suffering in pain and or limited in some way. Now, I haven't yet got back to a state where I can pick a thing off the floor because of my spine. I can reach down to about a foot. So it means if I drop something, it's there forever.
Yeah. But so this is a... It's a painful experience, but it's also a good experience for you.
It's really done a lot of good for me because I realize now what it's like to be incarnate more. I respect this body, and I've discovered that there is no separation between your body and the spirit. They're saying.
And in practical terms, you also decided to say,
your body is a spirit. Your physical matter is a spirit. It's intelligence. The intelligence in the human body is enormous. To have you think, or have you move, you have your health, and you have all the operations of the cells, the intelligence in the cells, it's got some incredible lessons in it. Just in simple cellular
As different
structures.
from the mind intelligence?
The structures of the cell which scientists look at, and they're looking for intelligence in it, that's irrelevant in my world. Because it's a little bit different for, maybe an ape is 1% different to a human in cellular structures. Mm-hmm. But mentally and consciousness-wise, we're very different to animals, for instance. But really, we're no different at all in other aspects. In fact, Animals govern their world sometimes better than human beings do. In fact, most animals are in harmony with nature and with themselves a lot more than humans are. We're supposed to be the head of the mammal kingdom, but look at us. Are we a good example for mammals?
We haven't taken very well care of the world, did we?
We haven't taken care of ourselves even. You know, that's the first thing we have to look at, is who we are and how do we remain in bliss. And how do we take the limits off ourselves so we can be free. And once having got that freedom, give that freedom to others too, because you can't be free unless you give it to everybody.
That's a basic truth.
That's
freedom is what you're willing to give to other people.
Teaching, that's it. Simply take the limits off. Look for people who are willing to enter into unconditional relationships with you, which you can only do when you find somebody who has no limits. And that's a belief, you know, that you, because people say, oh, well, of course you're limited, you have a body. You can only do this, you can't fly, you can't do this. Well, you can fly in your mind, of course.
You can time travel in your mind.
Yeah. You don't have to take your body. Your body's just like a wet cell battery. You don't care what kind of car you have, it's a Rolls Royce or a small one, it has to have a battery. Without the battery, it won't work. A simple, you know, $10 battery, whatever. But it's essential to the entire car. A Rolls Royce that has no battery won't go anywhere.
In other words, the wisest sage who doesn't have a body is no good. He goes in his grave.
He looks after his battery. You know, the body is a physical battery that you have to keep charged with enough power and energy to think and be and have some influence and impact on the world you live in. Now, how do you get the impact on the planet? You see, you can't do it through politics. You've seen that doesn't work. Philosophy, maybe you can change a few minds, but through philosophy, like Einstein did, or Jesus did, you know. But still, that doesn't change the planet. I'm saying the new concepts, like, for instance, you're interested in the net, the World Wide Web. That's changing consciousness only insofar as making things easier to communicate, just like the telephone did.
Yeah,
the
but
telephone affected our life.
And so did the fax, and so does the car. And
yeah,
so
but we're not saying anything different on the telephone to what Abraham said. We've still got the same problems.
People are saying that the next century will be where our technology or relationship technologies will emerge, where we will use the net not to pay electronically, but really relate to other people, where we will use virtual reality and 3D worlds and stuff like that.
It won't make any difference though,
don't
unless we think differently.
So how do we start to think different?
Well, I'm saying first thing you have to do is take the limits off your consciousness, because it's, as long as it's limited by somebody or something, the validator of your experience, if you think you're a limited being, then you will be one. See, so I'm saying that's, if you look around the world and find how many unlimited beings there are, you might be able to count them on your hand.
So what to do? I mean, in the days of EST training, we would say, put people in some kind of environment for 48 hours, you don't make them pee, you just pressurize them until they open up, and then, well, the worst thing that happened then was they were reprogrammed, but the deprogramming part was kind of nice, you know, to get them to the point where they were themselves.
Well, that's what yoga is ultimately, is deprogramming yourself that you're a separate being from everything else. And you're not. Your fact is you are united with the universe whether you like it or not.
But how do we get people to just sit in the moment, be themselves, forget about the separation between them and even the chair they sit on, or the stone, or the people around it? How do we get them there?
First of all, you have to realize that language is a block, not a means of communication, it's a means of confusion.
It's a means of programming our thoughts.
Yeah, because human words are made by humans, and so they've got all the limitations of humans in them.
And we have all these projections with them.
Everything.
When we say
dictionaries
chair,
are full of definitions made by other people, and we speak those
definitions,
and we throw books at each other. There's, you know, many words in one lump.
So what are you saying? Not saying anything, not thinking anything?
No, I think you can say things if you find someone who has a consciousness that can receive it. See, I believe that until we learn how to receive stuff from the universe, we can't really give anything that's worth anything. Well, you can try, you can give all kinds of stuff, but that's not the real art, is to receive.
Yeah, what you're saying is magic, which is influencing the universe, won't work until we have the mystic experience, which is a total reception to what is.
Magic works when you understand what is. Till you understand what is and how it got to be the way it is, you're not going to impact it at all. So I'm saying there's an aspect of God, or the intelligence that runs the show, which humans are not looking at. And I call that the goddess, because the God and the goddess. You see, God created everything, and everything there is has got God in it.
Yeah.
But it goes on just being what it is, and there's nothing mighty, because God is almighty in that sense. He's everything there is. So who can change it? Who can change everything?
So that part of God helps us, that is grace?
It grows the jungle.
Yeah.
It grows your garden, but at the same time, if you didn't do the gardening, it would be a jungle.
Yeah.
So I'm saying you've got to have the goddess, which is the one that brings the beauty, it brings the qualities of life, which
The grace.
grace and many other factors that the goddess brings into the Godhead, which is part of the Godhead, which is neither female or male, but it is a quality.
And that's the quality we need. Now,
That's the magic. The goddess brings you the magic, but you can't get the magic until you're receptive to the goddess, the female in yourself.
yeah, but in the old days people would call it the Christ or the Christos in some...
Well, the Christ, there are many concepts of Christ.
But Christ is the one that
many
brings you to
human
God.
concepts. But what concept did Christ have of himself?
Well, he was the one that who could relate human beings to the experience of God. He was the messenger, the connector.
And he had the concept of the Father of a heavenly family, let's say. You know, the family vibration. It's an energy. The energy of family is universal family.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and there are families in everything. There are families of atoms, there are families of trees, there are families of you looking around you, there's all families of molecules, and the whole body's full of families of stuff. You know. So I'm saying he had that concept that everything that was in heaven actually was the same on the earth. And as it is in heaven, that's his prayer.
That's his prayer, yeah.
You know, the Father in heaven, hallowed be thy name. In other words, he made the name or the vibration of that holy. That's the first thing you have to do, he says. And the next is to say, well, everything that's in heaven, as above, so below.
As above is below. The fullness without, the fullness within, there's only one fullness. That's what the Hindus say. If that what we see and what is inside is only one, thou art that. Many ways to say the same thing. But how do we get to experience that oneness?
Well, first of all, you have to realize there's many ways to say something, but it's all the same thing. So why don't we go for the same thing and put that top of our list so we can all find our individual ways of saying it and give freedom to everybody to say it in the way, whatever way they can say it.
In other words, the union that they were trying to achieve could be in the form of whatever religion, whatever practice, whatever. The Hindu is not different from the Buddhist. They're all searching for this oneness.
The same thing, the same intelligence that's in the cells here. Like, for instance, my cells, if I cut myself, it heals. They come together and, a few days it's all regenerated. The cells have regenerated the tissues, and that regeneration is written in the DNA. And so I'm saying, why don't we study regeneration? Because some animals, like lizards, they cut the tail and it'll grow back.
It'll grow back, yeah.
Regenerate. We can't do that. We can't cut a leg off and have it regenerate. I'm saying regeneration in the cells is very intelligent. Very intelligent. More intelligent than humans are.
Well, but we don't have much theoretical framework to work from. There's Rupert Sheldrake, who says there's a thing called morphogenetic fields.
We can explain it through science, but it doesn't
make sense
you can
yet.
do anything. You can't make an egg.
No, we can't make humans.
Humans can't do certain things, you know. I'm saying chicken can make an egg easy,
But we cannot.
but we cannot. So I'm saying you can know all about eggs, you know, and still not make one. And I'm saying we have to come to the intelligence which makes the egg, which is, you call it God or call it intelligence, it doesn't make any difference. Call it consciousness, it doesn't make any difference.
How do we get there? How do we, in real life,
Well,
close
I
to
tell
God?
you take the limits off first, off the validator of your experience, because you're the one that says this is true. If you have a guru and the guru tells you something, you've still got to say that's true or that's false.
Based on his.
So you're the guru, ultimately. You're the one who says, I feel this way, or I think this way, or this is my reality. And until you know that, you can't change it.
But for most people, that's a painful process. Even to say,
Of course.
I look at my own life and judge it as perfect, not even good or bad, but perfect, because it is. That's a hard thing, because most people look at their lives as saying, well, this was miserable, you know, I failed school and my father thought this about it and my first love was lousy and this and that and that. They have all these judgments about themselves.
Because it's easier to think negative than just to think positive. See, most people can think about their pains and about their rotten life and everything.
Why doesn't the government issue every year a letter to us saying, you are perfect, you are complete, you're okay, and this is the official seal to it?
Well,
Would
the
that
governments
help?
are already trying to govern us, you know, because we can't govern ourselves. So once we have self-government, you don't need a government.
Yeah, but I'm looking for ways which we could learn to not look at ourselves as not as negative, as a failure, as, you know.
Most people say, well, there's only one way, you know. If you're a religion, you say, this is our way, and this is the only way, through this man or this belief or this whatever.
So you say there is no single way anyway.
There's no way at all, because you're already there in consciousness, but you just don't know it because you don't know what consciousness is. And I'm saying you can't change consciousness until you know what it is.
Why has God brought us in this position? I like the line that says, he who brought us here will bring us home. But still that is an action.
That's right.
What it really should say, he who brought us here, we are at home.
No,
we are at home now.
He who brought us here gave us consciousness to do what we like with. And that's how we create hell or we create heaven. Or a good life or a bad life. Or an interesting life or a sexy life or a philosophical life or whatever kind of life you want. First of all, you have to decide what you want. And most people don't know. They go this way, they go that way, they go up every alley looking for what they want. But
I don't know. I gave up looking for what I want. I think that what happens to me is okay. It's perfect.
Yeah.
And every day new things happen. And they're usually very interesting. Sometimes, you know, you broke your back, I broke my arm. I learned so much from the experience of being in a cast, of how this works. As you say, pain. I look different at people now. So it was negative because it hurt.
It was limiting you.
It was limiting in me, but also it is like a very interesting lesson to
So
to
you
have.
can learn from limits. But you have to know who makes the limits. And everything. Most of it's set for us by other authorities.
Well, there was another lesson. The doctor said, look, you broke your arm, but it's been set and the bone is
Takes
healed.
6 weeks. Yeah.
Well, it takes 6 weeks, but it's there now. And now it's all a matter of exercise. And this is, it's not good, but you have to exercise it. And the fact that you can do this is really your consciousness. It's the pain that holds you back, but there is no physical reason why you need to do that. Yeah, there might be some blood in there and clots and stuff like that, but that will go. So it's my mind that decides whether I feel good or not.
So take a painkiller and you won't feel it. And then you might be able to bend your arm
Yeah.
and do things that you wouldn't normally do.
Mm-hmm. Well,
So you asked me the question, how do you do that? You see, and I'm saying it's so simple that you can't even describe it in words.
yeah, but that's what many sages have said. This is beyond belief. There's no words to describe
But you
the
can do it
experience.
in experience. If you can't do it in words, you can still experience that. And so I say, why don't we go directly to the experience now, in the moment, outside of time? Because time is a human creation too. So why live in time? Why create time? Why create space, for instance? Most people say, well, space is there. It's only there because you're a body. If you didn't think you were a body, supposing you never thought you were a body, never had pain, never thought you were a body, what would you be?
I could probably walk through
How
walls.
would you think? You wouldn't say there's space because you never experienced space.
Now I do this sometimes, and in my conversations with people like you, I try to be here. What happens then is I enter some kind of psychedelic nowness, which is a precursor to this state of full union. But it's kind of funny, I tell you. It's like I'm here, and your face changes, and I become very acutely aware of your eyes, and like the.
Yeah, because we're experiencing that through our imagination. And most people think the imagination is something you've got to get rid of, you know. But everything is imagined. Every object, your own body, a motor car, a rocket, everything is created by imagination. An aeroplane is created on a drawing board from human imagination.
But it started out in the mind. Yeah.
Every nut and bolt in that plane that's flying overhead has had to be created by a human mind. So I'm saying learn what mind stuff is and what it can do. If it can create aeroplanes that fly overhead, now what else can it create? I'm saying it can create reality. But it'll only be at the mental level, the mind level of the imagination. I'm saying go beyond the imagination. And the philosophers say that's the void. But I'm saying if you go beyond the imagination, there is no void.
There is the all and everything.
There's all and everything. And it's not a void. Because who says there's a void? An authority. You. You're the one that says whether there's a void or not. And I'm saying as long as you believe there's a void, there will be one in your life. But there is no such thing.
Yeah, but isn't this like sometimes when you have a near-death experience or when you take some kind of drugs or whatever, you go and you have a feeling sometimes. First there is images and there's imagination and you see colors in it. Sometimes you lose that and you enter what you could describe as a void, but in fact is a total fullness and a lack of separation.
You could call it a total emptiness. The Buddhists call it mindfulness or an emptiness. And I'm saying that's only you experiencing what we would think of as nothing. No thing.
Yes, well, I experienced it as a...
But really,
yes, I have no words for it, but it's there, and I could.
But what is thinking that? You see,
yeah,
not nothing, but something.
Well, later after the experience, you give it a name. You look back and you say, "Oh, wow."
Yeah, there's something that is there. It's called consciousness. But unless consciousness is pure, that is, with nothing in it, then you can't experience it as it is. And even when you say truth, the word truth, you know. That's another word that doesn't really exist in reality.
Because
who confirms truth? Who says what is true? You do. Even if you read it in a book, you have to say this is true or this is false.
So all adjectives, all descriptions of things are really separating us from the real
human-made imaginations. And I'm saying go beyond that point by getting rid of it. Now it's hard to get rid of it because you've been indoctrinated from the beginning of year one. You know, throughout the whole of evolution, humans have developed.
So a way of doing that is you can sit in the woods and not trying to see trees or green or so, but just
see the end result as many thousands of years of processing. We are that. Our incarnation is not a dead thing that you die at the end of it. It's just the end of a long chain of living flesh. There's been no separation in flesh, you know. You've always been matter.
We are all started.
Your sperm and ovum is matter. Where does that come from?
From the stars sometime.
It comes from your mother and father, but I'm saying what's their mother and father, and go back to the beginning and realize that you are all of that at this moment in time. Everything that you've ever been is right here and now with you.
I'm the center of my own universe and the universe.
And in that sense, that's what they mean by God. being centered in the pure consciousness is centering yourself in God. So that's hard to get across because we're using human words and human images. Okay. So I'm saying go beyond, and then you get happiness and you got everything.
Christopher Hills talked about all and everything and being it. Thank you, Christopher.
Okay. Human images. Okay. So I'm saying go beyond, and then you get happiness and you got everything.
Christopher Hills talked about all and everything and being it. Thank you, Christopher.
Okay.